Bienvenido a Café Espacial. Conduce y dirige el doctor Fermín Romero Vázquez. Análisis con expertos en materia sobre el futuro de la agenda espacial global, así como las diversas temáticas inherentes a la exploración espacial, los beneficios de la ciencia y la tecnología espacial para toda la sociedad y los problemas derivados de esta en términos de desarrollo para mejorar la calidad de vida en la Tierra y su potencial extensión a otros confines del universo a través de la nueva carrera espacial y el New Space. Café Espacial. Es momento de un café.
Hello, my dear friends. This is Fermín Romero, and we're very happy to have a special guest today. We have Manuel Pimenta and Manuel Manny. Pimenta is an electrical engineer with master in computer science, 25 years space advocacy focus in establishing a permanent human presence on the moon. He has served as vice president of the New York City chapter of the National Space Society, founding board member of the International Lunar Observatory Association, Return to the Moon Project Director for the Space Frontier Foundation, organizer of 2 Return to the Moon conferences, founder of Lunar Explorer, created the world's first fully immersive VR simulation of the moon over 20 years ago, and more recently founder of VirtualMoon, which is the enterprise that we're going to talking about today. Well, to give a brief introduction to the subject of today, which is virtual moon building an exact digital replica of the moon, let me tell you that VirtualMoon LLC is a company focused on creating highly realistic and immersive virtual reality VR simulation of the entire moon. The primary endeavor is the development of a comprehensive digital twin of the moon. This involves accurate lunar software preparation, immersive VR experience, physics and environmental simulation, digital twin functionality, future concepts. The key applications and goals of the virtual moon are education and inspiration, astronaut training, mission planning, and engineering of scientific discovery and research. VirtualMoon is building an exact digital replica of the moon that can virtually transport millions of people to the surface of the moon. My dear Manny, to talk about the vision and the future, I will ask you, beyond the 2045 vision of the Selene City, what is the virtual moon brand's perhaps even audacious long-term vision for humanity's relationship with the moon? And how does the platform contribute to that?
Well, we see the moon as the stepping stone for humanity to go out into space, to conquer space, to become a true spacefaring civilization. So we see the evolution of the moon as a destination. Because it's so close to the Earth and because it's so familiar to everyone, I think it's the experience that many people are going to be able to have of space, unlike, for example, Mars, which takes a long time to get there and so on. But we see the moon as a destination, just like Rome or Paris or Hawaii. It's a resort destination where people go to have the experience of being there, experiencing the environment of the moon. And so what Virtual Moon is doing is trying to visualize that future and also trying to catalyze that future, trying to inspire young people to start working towards building that future.
Excellent, my dear Manny. Well, tell us, please, how do you foresee VirtualMoon LLC evolving alongside actual lunar exploration and settlement? Will your digital twin dynamically incorporate real-time data from future lunar bases?
Well, our proposition is that we're going to recreate the moon exactly as it is right now, and right now means at every moment in time. So we're going to build. We're going to include in the moon all the objects that have been sent or landed on the moon, and as new missions come up, those will be added to the simulation as well. So Virtual Moon will evolve in parallel with everything that's happening on the moon, but also we want to be again a vision of the future. So we're going to try to move beyond what's happening today and try to provide this vision of tomorrow, 2045. You mentioned Selene. Selene is a very ambitious engineering project for a very large city on the moon for 5,000 people. And nobody's talking about the scale of settlement yet, but we want to provide this experience. So once we build Virtual Moon, we'll also build Selene on Virtual Moon. So we can transport people from the present where we are now to 2045 and show them what's possible.
Yeah, of course. Nobody's talking about yet about human settlements, but it's really important to plan on this because in this case, Virtual Moon, it's a great opportunity to do that. And what emerging technologies like AI, but advanced haptics neural interfaces are you most excited about integrating into the Virtual Moon experience in the next 5 or 10 years, or to enhance immersion and functionality?
Yeah, well, I've been a virtual reality evangelist for many years. I love the technology. I think it comes close to what Arthur C. Clarke quote, the famous quote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think virtual reality is that kind of technology. We're still in the early stages, so the devices are still clunky and underperforming and so on, but the technology is going to evolve very rapidly. But we see down the line, beyond putting on the headset, we're looking at motion platforms, so you can have experiences of driving vehicles on the surface of the moon. We also see treadmills where you can physically walk, but in place. So you don't need a large space and you can walk infinitely in any direction. So we have ideas for a 2-dimensional treadmill that we plan to implement eventually. And integrating virtual reality with robotics, we see the possibility of creating something that's that's really a Star Trek holodeck. We can create something that approaches that very closely, the Star Trek holodeck. And that's on the plans.
Wow, that's very impressive. If successful with the moon, do you envision expanding the digital twin concept to the other celestial bodies like Mars or Astros, for example? What would you be the unique challenge there?
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge with the virtual moon is nobody has really attempted to create a simulation of an entire planet and create the surface in very high level photorealistic detail and render it in very, very high frame rate video. So it creates an experience that's as close to real as possible. So we have to develop some tools in order to generate the level of detail and in order to stitch all those parts of the surface together to make an entire planet. Mm-hmm. But once we develop those tools will become universal. Like we can just take the data set from Mars, and using the same tools, we can recreate Mars very quickly. So even though it might take us a year or two to build the virtual moon, once the tools are in place, it'll be a matter of maybe a few months, 2 or 3 months, maybe 6 months to build the entire planet Mars. As far as the challenges, I think, just the data sets. Can we obtain high resolution data sets that are true representations of Mars? And remember, we want to give people the experience of being on the surface of the planet. So we have data sets taken from orbit, but those are not high enough resolution. So we also plan to use artificial intelligence to develop and create high level of resolution and detail at the surface based on the lower resolution images and topography that we get from the orbit missions.
Excellent. Talking about that, how do you ensure the scientific accuracy and constant updating of the lunar surface and environmental models as new data becomes available on ongoing and future missions?
Well, that's really our commitment. Our commitment is to being very accurate and detailed and realistic. So we spare no effort. Again, the data set, if we have very high detailed contour maps and visual maps of a location, for example, of the Apollo 11 landing site, we can recreate that exactly. But we don't have that for the entire moon. We have that for very small sections of the moon. So eventually, we believe we'll get that data, and virtual moon is architected. The foundational layer of virtual moon is made so that as new data becomes available, we can easily integrate it, add it to the model, and improve the model. So in that sense, virtual moon will never be a finished product, because as new data and better data comes in, it'll continuously improve and update the model.
Right. Can you elaborate on the physical engines you are incorporating, or how deeply do they simulate complex lunar phenomena like regolith behavior, seismic activity, or the effects of extreme temperature in the equipment?
Sure. Well, digital twins are really custom built for purpose. So when you think, oh, I could use a digital twin, it's for something. And so the level of detail and functionality and precision that you build into a digital twin really depends on the use. So for the general public, I think just generating the gravitational field and how objects behave in that gravitational field is probably sufficient. But we also plan to offer services to the space industry, companies that have plans to do missions on the moon. So for those companies, they'll be interested in, for example, thermal expansion of different metal compounds of the objects that they send to the moon. They could be machines or containers or habitats. So we will build those high precision models of like temperature coefficients and how different surfaces absorb heat and all of that. We'll build right into the models, but we see those as more customized solutions for paying customers. So VirtualMoon will offer professional services, simulation services to companies that have missions on the moon, and those are the kinds of high precision physics engines that we will provide if that's what the customer needs and wants.
Yeah, I think this will be very interesting for the space mining industry. So about simulating the functioning of systems and their interactions, could you give us a concrete example of a complex system interaction you aim to model with the digital twin?
Sure. So let's take Selene, for example. This is going to be a very large city with 5,000 people. Well, we need life support system, right? The life support system is not really a single system. It's a combination of subsystems. So we have to recycle the atmosphere, we have to recycle the water, we have to grow food, and we have to provide the temperature, ambient temperature at a comfortable level. So it's all these different systems that are working together. So, and they all also interact with the power system, right? So to generate heat and to dissipate heat, you need to access the power system and the thermal management system. And so we're going to model, for example, how do you recycle the air, right? So how you recycle the air, you have to remove carbon dioxide and you have to replenish the oxygen. But in Selene, there'll be a lot of plants. So that's another system. It's a sort of a biological system. The plants will do part of the job of replenishing the atmosphere, but then we'll also have mechanical and chemical systems that will supplement or replace the plants, because Selene is going to have a lot of redundancies. So to maintain the life support systems, for example, we're not going to depend on one single solution that's responsible for maintaining the atmosphere. So there'll be a combination of biological systems, chemical systems, mechanical systems that will all work together to provide the living environment.
Exactly, very, very complex. And I'm sure that it's going to take a little bit more of time, but scientists are working on it.
But just if I just could add something else. So
go, please.
When Selene becomes available to the public, you'll be able to put on a headset and you're going to go walk into Selene and go exploring. And you can take backstage tours, you can take tours of the life support systems, and there'll be a guide, an AI guide that takes you around and shows you exactly how do we maintain the atmosphere or how do we recycle the water. You can learn all of this stuff. So it's a rich learning environment for technology and engineering as well.
Wow. I can imagine the Return to the Moon conference was a pivotal working experience for you. How have the relationship efforts influenced the development or strategic direction of the VirtualMoon? While VirtualMoon is a massive update to the Lunar Explorer, what fundamental design principles of successful elements for Lunar Explorer have you consciously carried over?
The people that I met at the Return to the Moon conferences are pioneers and very well known in the space community. I've met engineers and astronauts and scientists and business people, entrepreneurs. First of all, they've all been really supportive and really encouraging. But we've also drawn from those connections, and we have people in VirtualMoon, for example, that have become very valuable resources for us. So Andy Chaikin was somebody that I met at the Return to the Moon conference. He's the author of a book called The Man on the Moon. And basically, he interviewed many of the astronauts of the Apollo era and captured all that information. He's basically the preeminent historian of the Apollo program. So, is invaluable to us when we were recreating the Apollo 11 landing site, for example. We make sure that we get his input if he thinks that, our model is accurate and so on. We also have Dan Curry. Dan Curry is the special effects person in charge of special effects for the Star Trek series. So he's very keen on, what the visual impact of the simulations that you generate and so on. So they're very valuable resources for us to keep us on track and deliver on our promise of creating the best simulation of the moon ever created.
Talking about applications and the impact in the near future for astronaut training, what specific scenarios or skills do you believe VirtualMoon offers distinct advantage over the traditional training methods or simple simulations?
Well, the advantage of virtual reality is that the interactivity, the immersiveness and the interactivity. So for astronauts, for example, that are planning a mission on the surface of the moon, one of the things we can do right off the bat is we can recreate the location where they're going to be stationed or they're going to be working. And they can spend as many hours virtually at that location and learn that, become very familiar with it. So, the moon is very uniform in features. It really doesn't have many landmarks that you can reference. So it's kind of a desert, right? It's kind of a reference-free frame. But the few references there are, if you spend a lot of time in a simulation, you'll be able to become familiar and learn your way around that area. The other thing is, whatever activities astronauts are planning to perform on the surface of the moon, what tools and machines they're going to be using and so on, they can rehearse all of those in realistic detail, in real time, in virtual reality. And as I said, especially if you combine virtual reality with robotics and other technologies, you can really recreate almost a holodeck experience of what they're going to be doing on the moon in the future. They can go through those steps over and over and over again, repeat them many times, so it becomes instinctual. So as a training tool, virtual reality is one of the best ways of achieving proficiency in any learning environment.
Great. Considering your experience to the program VirtualMoon Ambassador, how do young students around the world envision the importance of creating a space-free future? How does the VirtualMoon Ambassador program use VR technology to engage and inspire students around the world? And what role do the international volunteers play in the success of the VirtualMoon Ambassador outreach efforts? How they are supported?
Well, this Virtual Moon Ambassador was, it's something that I started doing on my own for many years. I've been going to schools and speaking to young people, young students about how important it is that we evolve into a spacefaring civilization, because we want to maintain the Earth in a pristine condition, as pristine as possible. And so we want to access the resources and the energy from space and save the Earth, save the purity and the ecology of the Earth for future generations. So I go to schools and I talk to them about how important this is. I also tell students that, they are the generation that's going to build this future for us. They're going to create this spacefaring future, which is going to be amazing. And they should consider careers in the STEM fields, because that's how they can most actively participate in creating that future. So I've been doing this for many years. But ever since we developed the Apollo 11 landing experience, after I give my little talk, I put on a virtual reality headset. So every student gets to put on a headset and they experience what it's like to stand on the moon. They're standing on the moon. They've been transported back to 1969, and they watch history as the Apollo 11 comes and lands right in front of them. Kids are blown away by this. It's a profoundly impactful experience. it really hooks them. If these students had any inkling or inclination of any interest in space, this kind of experience really anchors in their mind. It becomes something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And so I've been doing this, and then I've also done conferences around the world and so on. So people are starting to learn about Virtual Moon. We're being contacted by volunteers from around the world who love the mission and the vision of virtual reality and want to participate. So we're replicating what I do here. I've been able to buy some virtual reality headsets and ship them to Tanzania and Tunisia. We're going to be shipping another one to Bolivia soon. And these volunteers are going to do the same thing that I do and taking this experience to students in their countries. Eventually, I want to scale this up to throughout the entire planet. I want every child, no matter how remote a place they live in, there'll be somebody coming to their school and give them this experience, this amazing experience of being on the moon, and inspiring them about the future of society as a spacefaring civilization.
Definitely, the program Virtual Moon Ambassador will be inspiring younger generation towards STEM and space exploration. I'm sure of that. But tell us, what has been the most surprising or unexpected use case of Virtual Moon that has emerged since its inception?
I don't think there's not yet. I know more use cases may emerge in the future, but everything that when we were considering creating the simulation, we anticipated that we wanted to create impactful experiences that would connect deeply and in a very visceral and personal way with people, and that Apollo 11 landing is showing us that this is the case. So we envisioned that. We also envisioned that Virtual Moon could be a great tool for planning missions to the moon and doing simulations of the missions as they unroll on the surface of the moon, and also for training. So we envisioned all these use cases already. Beyond these, I haven't. Nothing else has come up in the interim that has been a surprise.
Thank you. We're going to go to a short break, and then we will continue talking about these important issues. But
okay.
Right now we're going to a brief pause.
All right, I'll stand by.
Desde las situaciones más leves hasta las más graves, 24 horas del día, los 365 días del año donde te encuentres. ¿Sabías que en los casos de emergencia, los primeros minutos son fundamentales para preservar la vida de una persona? En casos como una parada cardíaca, problemas respiratorios graves, infartos, accidentes cerebrovasculares, entre muchas otras, la atención que recibe el paciente antes de llegar al hospital es fundamental para su salud. Y es que AMI es la empresa líder del mercado que está siempre lista para cuidar de ti y tu familia. ¿Cómo lo logramos? Contamos con una flota de ambulancias con tecnología de punta, ubicadas en puntos estratégicos de la ciudad para garantizar siempre una atención oportuna a tu llamado. Pero AMI es mucho más que un servicio de ambulancias. Con AMI tienes la tranquilidad de contar con un médico a domicilio siempre que lo necesites para ti, los abuelos y los más pequeños de casa. 1 de la mañana tienes fiebre y no te sientes bien, tranquilo, aquí está AMI. Nos llamas, te atendemos sin necesidad de que salgas de tu casa con mínimo estrés y sin costos adicionales. Además, los medicamentos para estabilizar tu situación de salud son gratis. Y no solo eso, con AMI cuentas con una gran variedad de servicios complementarios para tu protección y la de tu familia. Visita programada de pediatra a domicilio para tener la situación de los pequeños siempre controlada. Servicio de farmacia a domicilio. Análisis de laboratorio clínico en casa. Cuidados de enfermería en la comodidad de tu hogar. Y lo mejor de todo, puedes incorporarte a la cobertura de AMI a cualquier edad, sin examen médico previo, sin preexistencia y sin límite en la utilización del servicio. Los adultos mayores son bienvenidos. Además, ponemos a tu disposición un amplio directorio médico de especialistas con grandes descuentos para nuestros clientes de AMI. Queremos ofrecerte lo más valioso y sabemos que es tu salud. Por eso, AMI, protege a los tuyos ante cualquier problema de salud.
México, te quiero despierto, te anhelo vibrante, te pienso fiel, latiendo al ritmo de tu recuerdo, camino en el renacer. Corazón de maguey, corazón de maguey, mil mentes son más de mil razones buenas, la tradición, el color de la luna nueva, corazón de maguey, corazón de maguey. Con mil mentes se forma un corazón que hace de todas.
Well, we're again with Manny Pimenta, and this time we are going to talk about business and collaboration. My dear Manny, you have an impressive list of collaborators. How do these diverse partnership like former astronauts, entertainment veterans, space industry companies shape the development and direction of VirtualMoon?
I'm sorry, I missed a little bit of your question. Could you repeat, please?
Yeah. I said you have an impressive list of collaborators. How do these diverse partnerships, like former astronauts, entertainment veterans, space industry companies, shape the development and direction of VirtualMoon?
Well, again, because of our commitment to accuracy and realism, we think it's important to have professionals in the field to provide their knowledge and expertise. So the people that we've gathered on our board of advisors as part of the VirtualMoon team they're really an impressive team. We've been fortunate and are so grateful that they also believe in the mission and the vision of VirtualMoon, and they decided to join forces with us. So, for example, Dr. Jeff Hoffman currently is a professor at MIT, but he was one of the astronauts that went to space and repaired the Hubble Space Telescope. And so, just one thing that comes to mind, we want to create the experience of being on the moon in a spacesuit. So we asked Dr. Hoffman, what does it sound like in a spacesuit? Because that information is nowhere. We can find that information anywhere, but somebody who's actually worn a spacesuit can tell us, there's the whirring of the ventilation system and various sounds and clicks that happen as you do different movements. So we're going to take that information and we're going to add it to our simulation so it becomes that much more realistic. We also have Dan Curry, as I spoke about. He's an expert in visual special effects. So, he'll be able to be a valuable resource when we want to create certain, again, visual effects for things that you would expect to see in space. We already talked also about Andy Chaikin. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the Apollo program and all the details of that mission. So whenever we're recreating an Apollo site, we can go to him and make sure that what we're doing is correct and accurate. So those are valuable resources for us. As far as the businesses, we have been able to negotiate, or we have in place letters of intent with a few of the new space companies that are planning missions for the moon, and we're going to be providing simulation services to them, again, for mission planning, for ConOps, for we can do traversability studies if they plan to send a vehicle to the surface of the moon and they want it to go from point A to point B. We can tell them whether it's actually possible to go from point A to point B over the surface and what kinds of terrain they're going to encounter and so on. Because we've downloaded the highest resolution map of the lunar elevation that's available from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and we can use that as our terrain to do mission planning.
Excellent, congratulations. I can imagine this allows you to have a huge network around the world with companies. But tell us, what is your strategy for making the free version of VirtualMoon sustainable while also developing and offering advanced features for professional clients?
Okay, so for professional clients, I'll take the second question first. For professional clients, we really see ourselves as an expert and service provider, providing simulation services. So those clients will pay for those services. So, that's economically self-sustaining. Now, the free version of VirtualMoon, again, because VirtualMoon intends to be a business and a successful business, and I think we can really only achieve our business, our mission and our vision by becoming financially successful. But the mission is to share the moon and inspire these young generations about our future as a spacefaring civilization. So we want to make sure that everybody can access these experiences free of charge. We don't want to put up any barriers. We want to share the moon with the whole world. Now, because the experience is so compelling, standing on the moon, I'm going to send you the link to our Apollo 11 landing, and then I'd like to hear from you how you felt. But
Okay.
we have dozens of videos of how people react, and they are blown away. They really feel like they've been to the moon. So this is an amazing experience. Because it's such an amazing experience, and because it's free, pretty much everybody that owns a virtual reality headset will come to VirtualMoon. Once they are there, we're going to offer them all kinds of really cool things that they can buy at a very reasonable prices that will generate revenue for VirtualMoon. Now, one of the cool things that we want to offer our users, the users of VirtualMoon, and also because this will create yet another more direct link to the moon and to space, we're going to offer people the opportunity to own pieces of VirtualMoon. You can buy a property on VirtualMoon and it becomes yours. So you'll have to pay for that, but it's going to be very reasonable. Any kid that can give us $1, for example, can get 100 square meters of lunar property just for $1. So this creates another connection, but it also creates a really viable revenue stream for VirtualMoon, so we can keep developing and maintain the simulation at the leading edge of technology.
Great. How do you see VirtualMoon LLC position within the rapid growing commercial space ecosystem? Do you envision VirtualMoon being like a primary tool provider, a content creator, or something else?
I think primarily we want to be a content creator, again, creating these amazing experiences, and I think this will have an impact on space exploration, because by inspiring these young people and giving them this vision of the future, and a future that's compelling that they want to participate in, they will some of them will choose careers in the STEM fields. They'll become astronauts and scientists and rocket designers and architects, space architects, and so they're going to contribute to creating that future. So that's really the impact that I would hope we're going to have overall, is that kind of impact. but we're also going to be, again, service providers for the space companies, as we mentioned before, by providing simulation services to help them plan and execute their missions.
Right. Oh, this is very, very exciting, really. But tell us, what was the initial spark or personal inspiration that led you to dedicate yourself to creating VirtualMoon?
So this is a long story, but we'll keep it short because we don't have a lot of time.
Please,
But
please.
it all started when I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old. I was living in Europe, and I stayed up late with my dad and my uncle, and we watched the live broadcast from the moon. And my mind was blown. I said, I'm seeing pictures of men walking on the moon. This is amazing. This is fantastic. Someday I want to have that experience. So VirtualMoon, and actually VirtualMoon is a reincarnation of an earlier simulation. As you mentioned, I'm the creator of Lunar Explorer. Lunar Explorer is, again, a virtual reality, fully immersive, fully interactive simulation of the moon that we did 20 years ago. 20 years ago, before virtual reality was a viable commercial technology. But the reason that I want to create this experience is because the chances of me actually going to the moon are so slim now that I want the next best thing. If I can't go to the moon, I still want to experience the moon. And so the selfish reason is for myself to experience that. But then it occurred to me that, if I'm so enthralled with this experience, there's got to be other people that feel the same way. So why not share the experience with the whole world and just let them have that same deep connection with the moon. And from the results, like I said, the dozens and dozens of videos that we have of our kids and adults, we have videos of kids as young as 5 and people into their 80s, and they react amazingly. So this is having the impact I was hoping it would have. It really people really feel like this is a one-of-a-kind experience.
Wonderful. Let me, congratulations, because with this long-term project, you are fostering a culture of innovation and passion with your team, particularly for the space. But let's talk about challenges and future on the new space era. In the current new space race and the new space era, the return to the moon conference was very important for you. But tell us how these relations influence the development or the strategy. No, sorry. Well, we have talked about this, but tell us. VirtualMoon is a massive update for the Lunar Explorer. What fundamental design principle or successful element from Lunar Explorer have you transitioned and carried out?
So Lunar Explorer was very ambitious also. Again, we wanted to create the best possible simulation of being on the moon. So that means that we have to include all of the visual elements. So Lunar Explorer already embodied all of the concepts that we want to recreate again in VirtualMoon. We got the very best digital elevation map in existence at the time to create Lunar Explorer. We recreated all of the Apollo landing sites with all of the objects on the surface. So we did a lot of research, and you can visit in Lunar Explorer, you can visit all of the Apollo landing sites. We also had all of the unmanned NASA surveyor sites. So everywhere we landed a surveyor, you can visit those locations and the surveyor will be there. We also recreated all of the Soviet missions to the moon. The very first landing on the moon was a Soviet lunar mission, and you can go to that location and you see the object that they landed on the moon. It's there. There were robotic missions that the Soviets sent to the moon. You'll find those. You'll be able to go to those locations and see the robots. There were sample return missions where they scooped up lunar soil and brought it back to Earth. So we recreated all of those. So every visual element. So if you could go to the moon, everything that your eyes could see, you'd see in Lunar Explorer. If you look up into the skies, you'll be able to see the star field and identify constellations. You'd see the Earth. We had a navigation grid with latitude and longitude. So all of those elements will be part of Virtual Moon. The difference is Virtual Moon is much more enhanced because we have a much better data set of the elevation. It's much higher resolution, and the technology has evolved. Like 20 years ago, virtual reality was a very poor performing technology. And the device that we used to have at the time was a military grade headset that cost around $30,000. So now for $300, 100 times cheaper, you can get a virtual reality headset that performs 10 times better. So Virtual Moon is going to be a massive improvement to everything we did 20 years ago. But Lunar Explorer, until Virtual Moon becomes a reality, is still the world's only fully immersive and interactive virtual reality simulation of the moon in the world.
Yes, talking about the fast advancement of space technology and its applications, what are the primary ethical considerations you navigate when creating such a realistic and potentially influential representation of the moon and future human activities there?
Sorry, again, if you could repeat that, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, talking about the advancement of space technology and its applications, what are the primary ethical considerations you navigate when creating such a realistic and potentially influential representation of the moon and the future human activities?
Okay, ethical considerations. Let's see. Well, I think I can think of a couple. So the first one is for paying customers, customers that pay us to do specific work for them, create a simulation of their mission and so on. We have an obligation to them to keep their intellectual property confidential, right? So that's an area that's a given. Obviously, if we enter into a contract with a space company and they pay us to do a certain amount of work, any intellectual property created for that customer becomes their property. So obviously, we're not going to violate that. The other ethical issue that I think may come into play is, we're partners with an organization called For All Moonkind. And they and a few other organizations, like at the UN, they are trying to preserve the historical sites of where the Apollos landed and other historical sites of past missions to the moon. So when we create Virtual Moon, we're going to make sure, for example, people can't buy those properties where the historical sites are located, or they can't build anything near them. Those sites have to remain pristine. So it's not really an ethical issue on our side, but we want to support this mission of preserving the historical sites in our simulation by creating restrictions within the simulation to encourage people to preserve those sites as well. I hope that addresses the question you were asking.
Yeah, of course. Well, talking about these issues, how did you address the challenge of keeping the experience engaging and preventing virtual fatigue for users spending extended periods exploring the Big Far Moon?
Okay, well, this is a great question because I've been a fan of virtual reality for many years, and I have a number of headsets that I bought over the years. And I've experienced maybe over 200 different virtual reality experiences. And there are very few of them that are compelling enough that I keep coming back to them. There's maybe, I can count them on the fingers of one hand. The vast majority of these experiences you have them once and you don't really feel like going back. So engagement, what you're asking about, how do you keep people engaged and coming back to Virtual Moon? That's a really key question. So, well, I think there are two answers to that. First, the moon is very, very large, right? So if what calls you to the moon is the sense of exploration, you can explore for years. You can get yourself into a virtual vehicle, a rover, and drive it over the moon and go exploring, go finding new ways of getting from point A to point B, how to navigate the surface and so on, find amazing new vistas and panoramas on the moon. So that creates engagement in itself. But then Virtual Moon is going to be a platform on which we're going to build all kinds of other experiences. And we already talked about, for example, Selene. Selene in itself is another world that you can spend many, many hours, hundreds of hours exploring and learning all about what it takes to build and run an installation, a piece of technology like an entire city. You can spend many hours doing that. But then we'll also have other activities. For example, our users can interact with one another, and it's sort of a pervasive, mutually accessible environment where people can interact. So you can create games and competitions. We can have lunar rover racing on the moon where people race against each other. So these are just some low-hanging fruit examples, but we can create many experiences layered on Virtual Moon that take place in that environment. So I think we can keep the engagement going. One other thing I should mention, hope I'm not taking too much time, but another layer of learning and engagement inside of Selene, we're going to have the Lunar Academy. Now, the Lunar Academy is going to be a learning environment that, again, depends on virtual reality, hands-on, interactive, and sort of a playground, a sandbox where you can play with ideas and concepts. And it's going to be a curiosity-driven learning experience where somebody will walk into a virtual lab and they'll start playing with things. And if they're interested in how these things behave, they can dig down and get more information and learn more and more. So the more engagement, more interactivity, more learning opportunities. So I think with a combination of all of these ideas, we can keep the engagement going and keep people returning to the moon over and over again.
Well, I think this academy will be a good complement for Selene, and
yes,
it's very, very important for the project. But tell us, what is the biggest misconception people about Virtual Moon or the concept of a lunar digital twin?
Okay, I think the biggest misconcept is people don't really get it. Like I've explained to you what Virtual Moon is, and I think you've understood, and people listening to this understand. They can sort of visualize in their mind, but it's really impossible to explain how people experience the moon in virtual reality. It's like you are being there. It's profound. And so the misconception is, oh yeah, it's just something you put on the headset and you look at these things. It's not like that. It's like being on the moon. People don't understand that until they try it. So I would say that's it. And I've had this experience many times where I've approached people and tell them, oh, we have this really cool thing for you to try. And sometimes they're dismissive and they say, maybe I'll try it later. But then after I convince them to put on the headset and try it, they say, oh, I'm so glad you really convinced me to do this. This is amazing. So I would say that's the misconception. People don't realize or understand how impactful this is.
Thank you for clarifying this. Well, my friend, we're almost to finish the talk, but which is really, really interesting. Congratulations for all your great work on this. But please give us a final reflection on the future of your project, VirtualMoon.
Okay, so as I've explained, we have many ambitious plans for Virtual Moon. We think we can have a real impact in the world. We think we can reach thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands or millions of young people who will be inspired and jump into the fray and become, become active participants in creating this future. So that's our mission. We really want to achieve that, and we want to share the experience of the moon with the entire world and sort of shift the way people see space. Many people have a misconception of what space is. People think there's zero gravity on the moon. They think, space is a very abstract concept for them. But if you can give them the experience of being on the moon and looking back at Earth, now they have a relationship. They know they're standing on the moon and looking back at Earth. They have something to relate to. Now they understand space in a much less abstract way. It's much more intuitive to them that way. The other thing is, I don't know if you've heard of the overview effect, which is a powerful effect that many astronauts experience when they're in orbit looking down at the Earth, and how beautiful it is and how fragile it is, and how we should all, as humanity, we should all be united as a single human race and try to create the best possible future for all of humanity. So that's sort of the experience that astronauts have into space. I think Virtual Moon can come close to bringing that experience to millions of people around the world that will never have a chance to go into space.
Yes, I'm sure of that. Many people will be interested on this. How the people can contact you? Does the website have the available information to contact, or how the people can contact you?
Yes, please. We just posted a brand new website 3 days ago. You can come to our website and read about a lot of the stuff that I talked about. If you want to join us, you can click a button and give us your email address and your name. And you don't have to do anything. You can just join the community. But if you want to participate, if you want to be part of Virtual Moon, be a volunteer or an ambassador, let us know about that, because we have many opportunities. By the way, I should mention to you, if you just come to the Virtual Moon and put in your name and your email address, automatically we give you 100 square meters of Virtual Moon property.
Wow.
So you become an instant property owner in Virtual Moon. So encourage anybody, come to the website.
Great
and let us know let us know what you love about the moon and what you want to do, and we can all work together.
They only have to say, I see it at Café Espacial series, right?
Yes, that would be great as well.
Thank you so much, my friend. And well, after let's talk about a possible collaboration with the approaching the Universo Foundation in Mexico, which it's a foundation that I preside. So let's continue talking about this, my friend. But for now, I want to say thank you to you. It was a wonderful talk. I'm sure many people is going to enjoy this.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Muchas gracias a toda la gente que nos está escuchando en español. Yo hablo un poquito de español, pero no mucho. Pero yo he visitado México muchas veces. Más de 20 veces he estado en México, en muchas partes de México. Y me gusta mucho el país y la gente mexicana también.
Excelente, Manny. Pues un placer tenerte como invitado especial. Te mando un fuerte abrazo. Seguimos en contacto. Y a la audiencia, hasta la próxima.
Muchas gracias.